Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gary Bradford, and I'm the Yuba County Supervisor that represents the Plumas Lake and Wheatland area. Thanks for coming tonight to this discussion. It's going to be pretty informal. I'm going to talk over a couple questions that I hear frequently, and then hopefully after each question, I'll pause and we can have some time for you to ask questions kind of about that specific topic, and then we'll move on to the next one, and then there'll be some time for general discussion and questions at the end. So just a couple housekeeping things, typical for Zoom. Please stay muted unless you're talking. And maybe the best way to do this, maybe we'll try when it's question time that people can just ask questions, but if that gets to be an issue, then maybe we'll use the raise hand feature instead. It just probably depends on how many people have questions. And another thing is if you are asking a question, I would certainly encourage you to turn on your camera, but you certainly don't have to, and you don't have to have it on during the presentation if you don't want to, although it is nice to see people. And so I'm going to give a couple other introductions and then we'll move right into the questions. So first, I want to welcome Kevin Perkins. So Kevin, put your hand up. Kevin is the planning manager for Yuba County, and I think today I decided I'm going to start calling him the planning wizard. He knows everything there is to know about planning in Yuba County, and he's always super helpful to me when I have planning, zoning related questions. And so when I asked him if he was able to be here tonight to kind of help, number one, keep me honest. If I say anything that's not true, he can set you all straight. And then more importantly, if I don't have the answer to a question, he probably does. And so I want to make sure and bring someone who has the answers in case I don't. And then the next person I want to introduce is Rachel Downs. Rachel, if you could raise your hand too. So Rachel is also with Yuba County, and she is the head of our brand new Yes to Yuba initiative. And we could probably do an entire presentation. In fact, she is doing entire presentations to local service clubs and other organizations about what Yes to Yuba is. But just to give you a really brief introduction, her job is to provide concierge services to businesses that are in Yuba County and maybe want to expand or engage with county government, or businesses that want to locate to Yuba County. So it's great to have her on the team and working in that area. We're super excited about all the things she's going to be able to help businesses with in our community. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention Shirley Clare, who recently started a group on Nextdoor called Plumas Lake Commercial Development. And it was actually Shirley's idea for us to get together this evening and kind of have this discussion. And so I want to thank Shirley for kind of taking the initiative on that, and appreciate it, Shirley. So, and I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to join tonight. So we're going to start off with the first question. And this one might be the most kind of technical and in-depth, so I apologize for that ahead of time. If it's too technical and in-depth for you, then don't worry. It'll get less so as we move throughout the evening. But the question is, who is responsible to determine where businesses can locate in Plumas Lake? And so, I would answer that by saying it's zoning that determines an allowable land use. And so there's different categories of zoning. For example, there could be agricultural zoning, commercial zoning, industrial zoning, residential zoning. Every parcel in the county has a particular zoning designation associated with it, and that determines what's allowed to be done on that parcel. There's also, those are kind of some examples of private categories of zoning. We also have public categories of zoning, things like schools, parks, open space. And then there are different zoning types within each category. So in other words, within residential, you could have low density residential, you could have high density residential, which could be like an apartment complex. You could have medium density residential, which a lot of Plumas Lake is. And so that really talks about maybe how many houses are allowed per acre in that type of residential area. And then a similar thing happens with commercial zoning or industrial zoning, is you could have specific types of commercial zoning. They're not all the same. And there's also different types of agricultural zoning. So I hope that makes sense. And we're going to look at that on a map to kind of give you an example. So I'm going to share my screen here, hopefully, if everything works. So can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. And Shirley, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to share something before we move on? Are you there, Shirley? I think you're unmuted. Okay, we'll come back to you. So just to give you an example, here is a zoning map in Google Earth that has different colors for different zoning in Plumas Lake. And so as an example right here, this is the area. You can see the, if you can see my pointer, you can see the Plumas Lake Boulevard freeway interchange right here and Highway 70. And kind of this, I'm not really sure what color it is, but kind of this area where Walgreens is at on the south here, and then the fields to the north of that. If I click on that, you'll see that's zoned community shopping center. And so all of this area right here is zoned community shopping center. There's a similar zoning for that up here near Wheeler Ranch. So if any of you are joining from the Wheeler Ranch area, right here, we've got commercial shopping center, and right over here, we have commercial shopping center. Okay, and then there's other types of commercial zoning. As we go back down here, you'll see kind of, I guess it's more of an orange color. Right here, there's this highway commercial zoning. Okay, and then down here at the south part of Plumas Lake, you'll notice right here down by the Stop and Shop 2, there's a commercial shopping center zoning here. And then over on the east side, we've got 2 parcels right here, both also zoned highway commercial. And then just to give you a few other examples here in the community, this is kind of where the fire station is at right here where I'm pointing at. So a little bit to the west of the fire station and a little south, you'll see there's an area right here. It's green, it's zoned for a park. And then you'll see here we have zoning for schools. And so that's where the high school, future high school and future middle school in Plumas Lake will be going. So, and then also one other thing on this map I just wanted to show you because it does come up from time to time. So this right here is zoned high density residential, and that is north of Algodon Road, kind of at what would be the northeast intersection of the River Oaks Boulevard and Algodon Road. Eventually, for those of you who don't know, River Oaks will continue north and connect all the way up to Arboga Road up here. And so you'll be able to get straight through. And this right here is the Plumas Lake Golf Course. You'll see that that is zoned park as well. Okay, and then pretty much everywhere else in Plumas Lake, I can click on something right here, for example, someone's house. It's zoned medium density residential. So that's what most of Plumas Lake is zoned, is medium density residential. And you'll see there's more of that up in here and some here and down here and way down here. So lots of potential space for future residential development in Plumas Lake. And over here on the east side, same thing. So that's what that color represents. Okay, so that's the first question of who is responsible. And I don't think I answered it though. I will tell you, the county is responsible. The county sets the zoning. So way back when the Plumas Lake specific plan was developed, that's when this zoning was set. It can be changed, but there's definitely a process that you need to go through to do that if you're a property owner and you wanted to change your zoning. So so with that, I guess I'll unshare my screen right here, and then I will ask if there's any questions kind of related to zoning or who's responsible for setting that, how that works, that kind of thing. So is there anything related to that? You can just feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you have any.
Hi, we have a question.
Sure.
How does the SB 9 and 10 influence any of this stuff, or is that unrelated?
I think it definitely is related. And Kevin, is that a question that you can take?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that don't know, the state passed 2 laws in 2021, SB 9 and SB 10. SB 9 effectively makes it where any single family zoned residential property has the ability to put a second unit on it by right. And then also they have the ability by right to subdivide their property and add 2 more units on the back part of the property. There's still a process that people would have to go through the subdivision part of it, but as SB9 pertains to Plumas Lake, because MDR is considered a single family residential zoning district, if someone wanted to add a second unit and or subdivide their property in half, they would be able to do so per SB9. SB10 is the law that was passed that effectively allowed or allows jurisdictions to increase the density of properties if they want. It's not really, it doesn't necessarily allow jurisdictions to increase the density. What it does is it provides an exemption from environmental review. So anytime a project is approved in the state of California, it's subject to going through an environmental review process, CEQA, the Environmental Quality Act. And typically the CEQA process is how neighbors or people who are unhappy with a project, it's the easiest way to challenge a project. So a lot of housing projects in California typically get challenged on their CEQA document. And so the state wanted to make sure that they provided a mechanism for jurisdictions that wanted to increase density and change zoning and make zoning more dense. Wanted to give them a tool through the CEQA exemption to be able to do that if a jurisdiction wanted to do that. As of right now, SB9 is not mandatory. It's only if counties want to participate in it. And at this point in time, I don't think Yuba County is going to be moving forward with anything related to SB10.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions specific about different zoning types? Okay, we'll move on to the next question then. Who is responsible to determine what type of businesses can locate in Plumas Lake? And so you probably see them too, but on social media, I often see questions, I want business XYZ to come to Plumas Lake, or I want this type of business, right? So I want a Starbucks, or I want a pizza place. Or sometimes I hear residents say, I was promised X, referring to a certain kind of business or a shopping center when I purchased my house. So usually something they heard from their builder when they purchased. And then I've even heard things like they should build a grocery store before building more houses, or questions, why are they building another gas station? And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about those. So just to help people understand. So as mentioned, the county uses zoning to broadly define the types of businesses that are allowed in a specific zoning type, and therefore on a specific parcel. So what that means is, when I was showing you the zoning types, we looked at community shopping center and highway commercial. That are 2 types of commercial zoning in the Plumas Lake area, and those are set for specific parcels. So if you were to look into the Plumas Lake specific plan itself, if you Googled Plumas Lake specific plan and you read through it, you would find that there is a high level description of the types of businesses that are allowed to operate within those kind of zoning, whether it's a community shopping center or a highway commercial. And there's some slight differences there. But what you would find is that in both of those, it's pretty broad. It would say, pretty much most retail and many service businesses are allowed on any of those zoning types. So if you have, a community shopping center, you could have a restaurant there, you could have a gas station there, you could have a grocery store there, you could have a hair salon there, you could have a gym there. There's lots of things that are permissible by right. That's what we say, permissible by right based on the zoning type. And so if you're the property owner, you kind of get to choose which one of those business types that's allowed you want to put on your property. So the property owners, commercial developers, the investors, kind of anyone involved in a project on the private sector side within the limitations of the zoning makes that decision. So let's say that a car dealership isn't allowed in highway commercial or community shopping center, just as an example. So the property owner couldn't put a car dealership next to Walgreens because that wouldn't be allowed per zoning. But it would be up to them if they wanted to put a grocery store there, or if they wanted to put a McDonald's there, or if they wanted to put a hair salon there. That's really their choice. So it really comes down to, I guess, who is responsible to determine what type of businesses can locate in Plumas Lake. It's really a joint responsibility between the county and the private sector, with each having kind of a specific role, and the county's role being very high level and with respect to kind of general broad categories of businesses that are allowed per the zoning type. And then the property owner, commercial developer, investor is really the one that chooses, the specific business type within those requirements, and even the specific business that they want to locate there. For example, they might choose a gas station versus a restaurant versus a grocery store versus a gym. Or even within a chain, if they decide they wanted to build a restaurant, they're the ones that choose whether to build a McDonald's or a Taco Bell, or, if it's a grocery store, for example, they would be the ones to choose, are they going to put in a Rayleigh's, or are they going to put in a Safeway? So, and the county really has, as long as it complies with the zoning requirements for that parcel, the county really doesn't get to pick and choose the type of business or even the brand or the chain associated with the type of the business that the private sector wants to put there. So I hope that answers some kind of general questions about that, because I hear it a lot. And so I want to make sure people understand. So any questions on that, about how that's kind of determined? No? Okay. Man, you guys are letting me off pretty easy tonight. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is who decides the timing of a business coming to Plumas Lake. So, and you probably already know the answer to this, but I'll just reiterate it. It's really the property owners, the commercial developers, the investors. So, the county is not in any way dictating when those commercial properties that I showed you on the map get developed. I think that from a county perspective and from your supervisor's perspective, I'd love if tomorrow all of those properties were under construction and we were getting new businesses located in Plumas Lake. So there's absolutely nothing from a timing standpoint that the county's dictating or standing in the way of. It really is economics is what it boils down to. And so the property owners, the commercial developers, the investors, it's based on a financial analysis by them. And it includes things like costs. What will it cost to build their project? And that can be the cost to purchase the land, or, if they're purchasing it outright to build a project, what's it going to cost them to purchase the land? What are impact fees going to cost them, which can be a substantial part of a project sometimes. One of the reasons why we recently worked to lower the levy impact fee, it was probably one of the highest fees we have with respect to residential and commercial development. And so we're hoping it certainly has had a positive impact on the residential side. So we're hoping it has a similar impact on the commercial side. Construction costs, right? I think most of you know right now, costs of materials and maybe costs of even labor are outrageous, right? So that drives up the cost to do a project as well. And then what are the operational costs for their business going to be? What's their business model? And, where do they have to be to make money? And if they're looking to lease space, what's the lease rate, right? And how does that compare with the operational costs of their money or their business? And can they find a bank that wants to loan them the money based on their business plan, right? Does it all add up? And some of the larger chains, particularly, maybe grocery chains like Rayleigh's or Safeway, Target, Walmart, those kind of big, huge corporations, and probably a lot of maybe chain restaurants and things like that. They have entire teams that are dedicated to kind of crunching those numbers and looking at where to put their next spot. And so if you don't really align with what they're looking for, they're probably not going to come here until we're at a point where we align. And one of the things they factor in is population. So that's why continued residential development in Plumas Lake is important for commercial development, because people will look at, hey, what's my customer base? What's the what's the median income within, you know, a certain radius? What's the population within a certain radius? So, so I hope that kind of answers that question. Any questions about that, about timing and why businesses would like to, you know, come here versus not come here maybe at a certain time?
Gary, would it be helpful if we read some of the questions from the chat to you?
Yeah, I see a few of those there. It looks like I
Okay.
missed one there.
Yeah, just probably the one that's most relevant to what you were just talking about is the one from Kyle about, does the community have any sway to what is built in a specific commercial zone? And I know that you were intending to address that a little bit later, but if the opportunity presents.
Sure. So you know, I guess I would probably answer this as it depends. I mean, ultimately, if it's allowed per zoning, they can build whatever they want. However, we have seen recently, and I was very impressed and very thankful for them doing this. We recently saw a property owner and developer on the east side of one of the gas stations over there that got on Plumas Lake social media and asked the community what they wanted and got their feedback. And so from that standpoint, I guess I would say if the business owner or commercial developer is interested in engaging with the community and wants to do that, you know, I'm certainly happy to help facilitate that. And then if that happens, then I think the community does have sway because I think that, you know, they're not going to do that unless they care what we as a community think, right? And they're really honestly seeking our input. And so it's the first time I've ever seen that, and it was great. So I hope that kind of answers that question. And thanks, Rachel, for jumping in. And Kevin, if there's anything you want to add after any of these questions, I know I really haven't given you a chance to jump in, but if you have something to add, feel free.
No, I think you've done a really good job of explaining it. But one of the things I would add is the difference between development right and something that's not allowed by right. So if a business is going in and it's consistent with the zoning and what they're doing is allowed by the zoning, as long as they meet the county's development standards, they go ahead and build and move forward with what they're doing. But for example, if they need a conditional use permit, or they need a variance to the parking, or they need something that isn't allowed by zoning right, then any approval that is not allowed by zoning right requires a public hearing, and the public hearing does allow for public input and comment on the project's environmental document or environmental determination. So it does depend on whether the project is allowed by zoning or not in terms of public process. But Gary is correct that if the project or the business is allowed by right, they could go in, and you know, it's up to the developer on what goes in or what doesn't go in on that level.
Okay. And I see we have another question in here too. What kinds of incentives does the county provide for commercial development? Permit streamlining, reduction in impact fees, density bonus. I can just speak for, you know, reduction in impact fees. I know that's a conversation that we're definitely willing to have for certain development projects. One thing to keep in mind there, a lot of the impact fees that are charged for a project don't come from the county. So we can control the county portion of the impact fees and look at ways to potentially, you know, incentivize some of that. But we have to try to work with our other local government partners to incentivize potentially their impact fees as well. And in some cases that might be a little challenging. You know, it's kind of easier, I guess I would say, for the county. You know, let's just use a grocery store as an example. So if we're going to have a grocery store that's coming to Plumas Lake, there's going to be a sales tax increase, or you know, a portion of that sales tax is going to go to the county. And so we can kind of use that as, you know, a little bit of justification to do maybe some reduction in impact fees as we negotiate with them. no sales tax revenue is going to be going to RD 784 to the school district. So it might be a little harder for the school district to lower some of those fees because they aren't necessarily seeing the impact of that commercial development on their revenue that the county would be. And so just something that kind of be aware of. And I'm not as familiar with the density bonus. I think that's a great question. So hopefully that's something Kevin can talk about, as well as maybe permit streamlining or any other incentives that the county might offer for commercial development.
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, permit streamlining and density bonuses are associated with residential development. There's a few state laws that require that the county streamline different residential projects or allow density bonuses, which would be if, for example, the density of a project is 5 units per acre and the developer wants to make it 10 units per acre. If the developer was making the project have an affordable housing component to it, then they would be able to get a higher residential density. In terms of commercial, with commercial, it's sometimes referred to as FAR, or Florida area ratio, like on how dense a project could be, which Florida area ratio is does the how much of the parcel is made up of building. A 1-to-1 would be 100% of the site would be a 40,000 square foot lot would have a 40,000 square foot building, and that could either be flat covering the whole parcel or go up with multiple floors. So there's a bit on that as well. But in terms of just general permit streamlining, and I'm not trying to pat anyone in Yuba County Community Development on the back, but I've been with the county for 16 years or nearly 16 years, and one of the consistent bits of feedback that we get from commercial developers, regional builders, and anyone in the development process is how quickly and responsive we are in terms of our permit processing. That we do a really great job of making sure that our commercial projects are given the help and guidance through the governmental permitting process as much as possible. One of Rachel's parts of her job, which she can explain better than I, is to provide that concierge service to developers and help them come in and navigate our system and follow up with different staff members in different departments to make sure that they're monitoring their approval process for the commercial development or whatever special development that we're seeking in the county. And over and over, we do get a lot of kudos for how easy, quick, and friendly we are for a governmental agency. And that direction has been led from the board top down to the departments and staff. And frankly, it's part of the reason why I've worked at the county for 16 years is just because it's a really, what we do on a daily basis is to provide really good customer service to the public.
Thanks, Kevin. I know I hear that from folks that develop commercially or residentially elsewhere in the region, and it always makes me really proud when they share with me what a pleasure it is to work with our staff in Yuba County and how they really go out of their way to help them accomplish their projects. So it's absolutely true, and I know I appreciate it. So did you want to add anything to that, Rachel, from a Yes team perspective, or?
Sure, I'm happy to, and I will keep it very brief because I want to make sure that we get to Jacob and Ashley's question too. I know you guys have had your hand raised for a minute, so we will get to that one in just 1 second. And then thank you, Robbie, for the kudos in the chat over there. I have worked really closely with Robbie and Bridge Coffee, as well as our Wide Awake Geek co-working space in the city of Marysville, and a lot of the entrepreneurs there as well. So yes, I will just take a brief moment to share with you guys about the Yes to Yuba initiative and really what Kevin and Supervisor Bradford were talking about. And that is something that really through the whole development process, each of our individual departments are very yes-minded, as we would call it. So you have Kevin's team with planning all the way through the process of going through building and your plan submittals, as well as public works and how that ties into the infrastructure. And then also our environmental health department, so food service companies, grocery stores, your fast food, your gas stations, massage services, tattoo parlors. There's lots of different things, lots of different businesses that they work with. And so you can imagine that having 10 different contacts at the county gets a little confusing, especially for smaller businesses, which are also super important to our local community. And so that's where I come in. That's where Yes to Yuba comes in. We want our businesses, big and small, to say yes to Yuba County, yes to doing business here. So I will also just take a brief second to make a shameless plug that if any of you guys personally on the call are interested in starting, growing, or relocating a business, that's absolutely a conversation that we would love to have with you. I know we're really kind of focusing this conversation a little bit more macular on large scale commercial developments. So we want to be able to speak to those with you. But again, if you are personally interested, no business is too big or too small, I would love to talk with you a little bit more offline as well about how you can navigate this process. So thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. So Jacob and Ashley, let's take your question now. Are you there, Jacob and Ashley?
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So sorry about that. This is Ashley Cummings. We just moved to the area. So thank you so much for putting this on because it's new information for both my husband and I. We were curious if any of the current commercial owners have announced any sort of metrics to let us know, when they get to maybe a certain rooftop amount or some kind of metric saying, we have this goal. And then once we hit this goal, we will actively seek to fill up the land.
So that is a great question. And I don't know if Kevin has an answer. I have not heard about that, but one of the things that we will talk about, I think actually in the next question, is there are developers here, commercial developers that are actively working to fill up their land. So they're not just kind of sitting back and doing nothing. They're actively trying to get projects done. And so as far as specific metrics, I'm not aware of any. I think we're kind of near the metric that I've always heard tossed around that a lot of grocery chains look at, which I think was about 12,000 residents or so. I've heard that tossed around. And so if you count North Plumas Lake and kind of all the area in between, I don't know what their radius is for 12,000, but we're getting, we're pretty much at that. So Kevin, anything to add to that from a metric standpoint?
No, I don't. I try to keep in regular contact with the commercial property owners in Plumas Lake, at least on, a monthly level. And they haven't shared with me anything on, specific metrics that like once they hit, they're going to start to develop. We'll get into some of the specifics in the next slide, but Rachel and I did work on coming up with some demographic information a few months back for a potential grocery store that the county was trying to pitch why Plumas Lake was a really great place to build a grocery store. And while that specific grocer wasn't ready to expand, the bit of feedback that we did get was that they were really impressed with the average income in Plumas Lake. I think at the time, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like 135,000 was the average income in Plumas Lake, which for the community was, for grocery stores and economic development was pretty high for a region. And so we got a lot of kudos on that. It just was the grocer wasn't ready at that time to expand. But we can get into more specifics about the specific developers here in the next question that Gary has.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. And thanks for sharing your information in the chat, Rachel. I did see a question here. Someone's asking about why we're getting so many gas stations with the big push to electric vehicles. And I think that's a really valid question and something that the county's definitely started talking about. We're not the only jurisdiction to talk about that. And so there's certainly an opportunity in the future to maybe consider modifying the zoning to where if you want to build a gas station in the county, you have to go through a conditional use process. And I think I'm stating that correctly. But essentially, rather than a gas station being by right in certain commercial areas, you'd have to go through some kind of process. And that would allow the county to kind of go, hey, you know, we anticipate the need for gasoline to be dropping over the next couple decades. And if that's the case, right, we don't want to have a whole bunch of vacant gas stations around the county 20 years from now. And so to start kind of considering about that future. And so I want to thank Kevin for talking with me about that and kind of moving that effort forward. And so hopefully at some point, I don't know when, the board will be kind of considering something like that. Is that right, Kevin?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned it. And for everyone out there, every time this past year I got a call or my staff got a call from someone that wanted to develop a gas station, this was my response. Like I was like, no, not another gas station. So, you know, it's not like, you know, we hear you loud and clearly. You know, gas stations that are out, the current and future residential population. So, you know, hopefully that slows down. I think so. And my goal in 2022 is to bring a comprehensive ordinance to our Board of Supervisors that does require, at least in our valley growth boundary, which would include Plumas Lake, that would require a conditional use permit. And again, this gets back to the conversation I had earlier that some projects and some businesses, they can just go in by right because the zoning allows for it. And then other businesses, if you need a conditional use permit or you want a variance to the height of a building or height of a sign or something like that, needs to go to a hearing body. And so the importance of going through a conditional use permit is that the county would have the ability to add, you know, findings that were met, that, you know, gas needed to be, you know, determined, you know, at least a half a mile away from each other. I'm just throwing numbers out there. This isn't something, you know, we haven't worked through any of this, but those are the types of things that we could require as part of an ordinance or a conditional use process. And then also any neighbor in Plumas Lake or resident or anyone in Plumas Lake could show up to the public hearing and provide, you know, feedback as to why they think it's a good or you know, bad idea for the approval body to approve the project. So, you know, that will be coming to the board sometime in 2022, just so for everyone to know.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, any other questions on the topic we just were talking about before I move on to the next one? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to show you something else. Okay, so the next question that I'm going to talk about is where in Plumas Lake is commercial development likely to occur in the short term? And so, you know, one of these things we've kind of already talked about, and that is location. This is pretty high level, but locations where the financials pencil out. So costs, customers, you know, is the community growing? What's the income level? So that factors into it. Another big one is things that are adjacent to existing infrastructure. So you may not remember, but back at the beginning when I was kind of looking around at different areas within Plumas Lake that were zoned commercial, you might remember there was some large areas kind of to the north of Algodon Road. Well, right now there's not really anything there. There's no power, there's no water, there's no sewer, there's no road that goes up there. So that would probably be an unlikely place for commercial activity to occur at this point in time, because it'd be fairly expensive for a commercial development to happen there, because they'd have to put in the roads and, you know, put in the water and the wastewater and all those things. And so obviously the places that are most likely for commercial development to occur in the short term are things that are closer to existing roads, closer to power, water, wastewater, that kind of infrastructure. So there are a few properties in Plumas Lake that fit that bill. And those property owners are actively marketing those properties. And so we're just going to go through a couple of those right now real quick. So the first one is the area kind of around Walgreens. So right now you should see a slide on your screen that has big words site. And then you'll see kind of in the left area of the pictures, Walgreens, the Plumas Lake Stop and Shop, and then the two little NAP means not a part on that map as well. And kind of the NAP on the left-hand side, that parcel is owned by Sierra Central, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the one kind of in the, I guess maybe it'd be right off Plumas Lake Boulevard there that says NAP, that is owned by Petrovich, and we'll talk about some of his properties as well. But so just to kind of go through, this is a flyer that is on it's out on the internet. That's where I got this from. And so those who are looking for commercial properties in Plumas Lake, you can just Google, commercial development in Plumas Lake or commercial property in Plumas Lake. And these things that I'm going to show you, they come up. And so business owners that are looking to, locate in Plumas Lake, they have easy access to this information. And I'll share links to it as well a little bit later in the chat. So this big area right here is owned by a single person. It's being, owner. It's being actively marketed. And we'll talk some more about that, but just kind of scroll through some of these. These are just an example of some of the kind of things they put in these brochures. So they show you the parcel, they show you what's around it, they show you kind of its general location in the region, and then they give, these are the kind of things a lot of commercial businesses are interested in, right? How many people, right, are the demographics, right? How many people live within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? What's the daytime population? What's the median household income? You'll see within a 5-minute drive of Walgreens, the median household income is $107,000, which is actually very high. Average household income is even higher at almost 120 within a 5-minute drive of Walgreens. And then it lists the traffic on Highway 70. So and then it kind of gives some things about the property. And then it kind of lists, here are some other things nearby, right? Beale Air Force Base, the amphitheater, Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. And then it breaks down kind of the actual parcels that make up. I think I said it's one parcel. It's technically multiple parcels owned by the same person. So, they could sell it all to someone. They could develop it themselves and lease out businesses. There's lots of different options that they might have there. And then here they have, here's a conceptual site plan. So this doesn't say exactly what that shopping center is going to look like, but if someone's looking at maybe, hey, what could I do with that property? They kind of throw out an example. So you'll see here, it kind of has a big retail kind of building with multiple tenants. Including a grocery store. So right now with the different commercial properties that are in Plumas Lake, this is the one that's probably, just my opinion, but probably most likely to get a grocery store on it compared to all the other ones that I'll show you this evening. And then they have, maybe some restaurants or other things that they kind of give there for examples. And then they're trying to say, hey, here's a lot of, Plumas Lake isn't done growing. Look at all of these additional developments that are either in process or will be occurring in the future. So, all this to say that, in this case and the other ones as well, but specifically in this case, you have a landowner who's very, very interested in trying to get a project done here. And so they're not just sitting back and doing nothing. They've gone through the work of developing this, and they make this available to the businesses that might be interested. And here they kind of look even more regionally. Here's, kind of what's going on. So this is the next development I wanted to talk about, commercial development. This is on the other side of Plumas Lake Boulevard, predominantly, and this area is owned by Petrovich. And so you'll see, again, there's kind of an NAP here on the map. In this case, that NAP is the Chevron station that's under construction. And then you'll also see kind of, he's got a parcel here next to the Stop and Shop that he says, hey, you can either buy this parcel right here, it's half an acre, or you can do a lease, right? So you can lease the ground and then build what you want. And then over here on the other side, he says, hey, I've got this section over here, and same thing. You can either, do a ground lease on this, or, I'll build you a shop building I'll build you a building, and then you can lease space in the building. So, and then Petrovich goes and provides, you know, same kind of thing, different demographics about the community, what's already there. So this is kind of a zoom in of, you know, what's a potential for that corner that maybe he would like to build there. And it'd be about 13,000 square foot of you know, various retail, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 11 different things could fit there. And then he's got not a part here. That's a planned gas station that's going to be going in right there, I think. Okay, so moving on down, then he just kind of shows the area, the Plumas Lake specific plan, the region. Okay, another spot to kind of talk about. This is a site for sale on the east side that is also being actively marketed. So if you go across Feather River Boulevard, kind of at the intersection of Feather River and Chalice Creek, got the park and ride right here, a future park on the north side of Chalice Creek. And then you've got, it's not under construction yet, but you've got a proposed Circle K and 76 station going in right here, kind of on the southeast side of that intersection. And then the northeast side of that intersection is currently for sale. Previously, some work was done to maybe get a Chevron there. I think that this is for sale, so I think that's potentially on hold at the moment. And then again, it goes through, this is the same real estate agent that was actually selling the property, or the same broker marketing the property by Walgreens. So you'll see the information looks looks pretty similar. You know, looks like the income's actually a little higher. The median household income is slightly lower, and the average household income is slightly higher for the 5-minute drive from that parcel down at the south end, southeast end. And then here they're showing just kind of a sample, you know, what this could look like. You could put a gas station in there with a car wash or a drive-through or both, you know, or maybe something else. And then, you know, again, just kind of what it looks like regionally, same kind of slide. So another area that's being actively marketed right now is all of the area kind of around the Stop and Shop 2 down at the southern end of Plumas Lake. So this being marketed by a different company, by CBRE, multiple parcels there. And so, you know, they kind of break it out. Here's what it looks like. You know, here's the property features, again, giving some income information. You know, here's what's in the area. You know, that kind of thing. So that's it as far as that goes. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then the next one is to kind of talk about the status of maybe some of these developments, because I figure you definitely have some questions about that. But before I even get to that, are there any questions related maybe to just, you know, the availability of this property and, you know, how, just kind of general about what I just shared, I guess? Okay, not seeing anything. Kevin or Rachel, anything you guys wanted to add to that?
I don't have anything. I think you did a really good job answering any questions anyone has on, you know, what's planned or what I've heard or Gary's heard. So
okay, and I see you did put in the chat that, and I think you were talking about the the east side, right? One has a submitted building permit, so the 76 station, and the other one is not a done deal. Is that what you were talking about, on the east side?
yeah, the one gas station has submitted, the building permit has not been issued yet. They also went through the Plumas Lake Design Review Committee, which is made up of residents of Plumas Lake who look at the design, architectural feature, landscaping, building materials of new subdivisions and commercial developments. And so the one on the south side has gone through that process. The one on the north side not submitted building permits to the county and has not submitted design review application. So At this point, I've been told the property sale. So that's all I know of the one on the north side.
Okay, there was a question in the chat about links to that information being available online. So I went ahead and shared in the chat a link to each of those kind of brochures for people to to save or to have those. So, okay, so next, what is the status of current and short-term commercial projects in Plumas Lake? So we're going to talk about a few things here. So the first thing I think most people are probably aware, unless they've not ventured out of their house in the last few months, that there's a Chevron under construction kind of across the street from Walgreens. And I actually reached out to the person who's building that. I believe they're a Plumas Lake resident, and asked them for some information that I could share with you guys tonight. And so I have some information about that project that you may not be aware of. First of all, they originally had hoped to open in January 2022, but construction's taking a little bit longer than they had hoped. And so the current opening is planned for March 2022. So shouldn't be too long from now. A few things about that project. It's a 4,000 square foot project with an extra mile with Chevron. Inside, it's going to have a crispy, crunchy chicken. So I don't know if you've had that before, but it's absolutely amazing. There's one in a gas station off North Beale in Linda, and my son drives there all the time from Plumas Lake to go get it. So it's not going to be good for his savings account when that one opens here in Plumas Lake, and he doesn't have to drive all the way to Linda. So I guess he'll save some gas money. The owner also said that he's working on a Mexican food or pizza place as well to go in there. So no specifics about that yet. He plans to put in some frozen yogurt machines. So that'll make my daughter really happy. Maybe start off with 3 to 4 flavors. And if the community, it does well, then he'll add more. He's going to have a juice and a tea program, separate dairy and fresh meat market. And he's planning to have fresh deli sandwiches, but he doesn't have that completely worked out yet. And then trying to have it a little bit like an American and Mexican grocery store too. So he knows that we kind of have a need for some of that stuff. I know, same thing the Stop and Shop and the Walgreens both do, is they kind of carry some grocery items to kind of help us avoid having to leave town to get certain things. So, and then once it opens in March, he wants to work with the community to see what else is needed within there. So anyway, I'm excited about that. And so then we'll move on to the next project that I just wanted to talk about real quick. And that is the 76 on the east side. As Kevin said, a building permit's already been pulled on that, and it's gone through design review committee. I reached out to the owner of that parcel and asked them if they had anything in particular I could share tonight. Unfortunately, I didn't hear back prior to the meeting. So I don't have current status. Like I was hoping to be able to share when he's going to break ground on that. But I can tell you, based on previous conversations he had with Plumas Lake residents online, that he plans to have a Jamba Juice and a Baja Fresh in there. So that's really exciting. Some more food options here. So Kevin, I don't know if you have any other updates on that one.
No, I don't have anything on the south. The south, or the gas station on the south end of Plumas Lake, just east of the interchange. I haven't spoken with the property owner in probably a couple of months. I'll reach out to him tomorrow and try to get an answer, and then I'll give follow up to Supervisor Bradford so he could put it out on Facebook.
Okay. And so the next is the Petrovich property. So that's both a potential Arco gas station kind of right across the little driveway from the Chevron that's under construction by Walgreens across the street from there, as well as the potential multi-tenant retail on the corner there of Plumas Lake Boulevard and River Oaks. Last time I talked to Petrovich, and this is quite a while ago, he was looking to lease over 50% of that retail building before he built it, and he hadn't been able to reach that point yet. So I don't know, Kevin, if you have any status on the Arco or the retail building?
The ARCO has submitted building permits and does have an approved design review. I believe they're just trying to get through the building permit process right now. I would imagine they'll probably try to construct sometime in the spring of 2022 on that. As far as the commercial piece goes, the last conversation I've had with the representative of Petrovic is that they're still waiting to get enough potential leases in order for them to build the building and then put the leases in. But I haven't gotten an update from them either.
Okay, thank you. So the next thing I want to talk about briefly is Sierra Central. So early on in the discussion tonight, when I was sharing some of the pictures of commercial development area just immediately south of Walgreens, there's a small parcel there. It is owned by Sierra Central. I did have a conversation yesterday with the new CEO, and wanted to talk with them about when they anticipate maybe breaking ground on that branch. The status really hasn't changed. It's the same as I heard last time, but he reiterated it is still the case. As soon as work on that shopping center, and probably particularly a grocery store within that shopping center adjacent to Walgreens, breaks ground and starts construction, that they will break ground and start construction. So pretty much when we get a grocery store, we'll get a bank. So they're kind of going to come in a kind of a pair, hand in hand. So that's the update on the Sierra Central. We talked a little bit about the potential Chevron on the east side, on the northeast side of that intersection, and that's currently for sale. And then the last one to talk about maybe the shopping center near Walgreens. So the first kind of brochure that I shared, when I was kind of showing all of those commercial brochures for that kind of large area to the south of Walgreens. The owner of that is exploring different development options right now. And we hear from the broker, so the person who is contact information it's listed in the brochure. We hear from her that there are a lot of interested tenants, and so no shortage of interest on people that want to come and be part of that project. And so I think it's just a matter of kind of getting across the finish line at this point in time. No specific details to share, but it's all really encouraging, what I hear and what I understand. And so it's a very great time in the market right now with all the growth that's going on. And so I think there's great opportunity there for us to get multiple businesses, including hopefully a grocery store. So anything to add to that, Kevin?
No, I think you were pretty comprehensive with the discussion on the development south of Walgreens. I have kept in regular contact with that, both the agent and another representative of the owner, and they're fairly confident that they should have something going up. They have, I've been told they have multiple tenants ready, waiting to go. They're just the owners trying to work through, if they're interested in developing or coming up with a plan to develop the site themselves, or if they're wanting to sell it outright to someone else. And so there's a little stuff on that going on. But as Supervisor Bradford mentioned earlier in his presentation, that site in Plumas Lake, I hands down think will be the site where we'll see most commercial, multiple tenants at one time first, just because of the infrastructure, the roads, the sewer, the water, everything else being close by, and the developer not having to bring it in. So, I'm really excited about that piece getting developed, hopefully sometime in 2022.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. So I've got a couple questions in the chat. One is the planned Tesla superchargers going in at the 76 gas station? And yes, that is my understanding that there'll be Tesla superchargers there. I believe, and Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's also a proposal to have, I don't know if they're Tesla, but electric chargers at the ARCO station as well. Is that you have a recollection of that?
Yes, I believe so. You know, I know for sure the owner has specifically stated that he signed a contract with Tesla for the charging station on the south end. And I'll double check with the building plans on the Arco on the north end, but I believe there was a requirement to have areas set aside for charging stations.
Okay, thank you. And another question about roads, and will the southeast side ever connect up to Plumas Arboga Road? Not likely is the answer to that. I did speak with Public Works about that, and it's believed that the distance between the railroad track and the Plumas Lake Boulevard extension further east will essentially preclude any road from being able to pass underneath there, any normal sized road from being able to pass underneath there. So underneath the future interchange. And so there is the bike path, which serves as an emergency evacuation route as well. But that's probably about as wide as it'll be able to get. And so there probably won't be able to be regular access to and from the east side, you know, kind of down from Plumas Arboga Road. So I wish that weren't the case. I wish there was kind of alternate access to be able to get over there, but we'll know the answer to that for sure when the design of the interchange is complete. But that's the expectation, is that there won't be room to be able to fit both a regular size road and the interchange in that tiny little spot. So and next, does the county own any land in Plumas Lake? Yes, not a lot. We actually owned a tiny little strip along River Oaks Boulevard that we recently sold to 2 developers and gave to OPUD and the school districts. Again, very narrow strip, so you couldn't really build anything on it. It used to be a drainage canal along River Oaks, and the county owned that from way back when. And so it wasn't useful for us to really do anything with. And so we wanted to, you know, allow it to be used for those housing developments that were adjacent to River Oaks, kind of across the street from the fire station. And then even more so wanted it to be able to be used for, you know, the future schools and community park that are going to be built there. So we also own a little bit of land. I don't know it off the top of my head, but kind of around where the interchange is. So on the east side, particularly if you go, I think both north and south from the interchange on the east side of Highway 70, we own that land there. So there's a point, I think the development on the east side stops, and then there's probably almost gosh, I don't know if it's a mile or half a mile, but a pretty significant amount of land to the north of where future development will stop on the east side, and that is owned by the county, as well as the land where the Bear River Habitat Trail starts. Kevin, any other land that comes to mind? I know there might be a few parcels here and there, like for drainage or, you know, something like that, but.
No, I think
Oops, we lost you, Kevin.
there is a, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. You were breaking up.
Okay. So there is a parcel of land where, like on the west side by Feather River Boulevard, that's county owned. That is, it's more residentially based. But as far as, I think you nailed everything in Plumas Lake proper, that the county owns. I do. If you don't mind, Gary, there is a question about a more direct path to the golf course in the future in Plumas Lake, and that's something that I can speak on if you'd like.
Yes,
public
please.
work. Yeah. So right now the Ross Ranch subdivision, which is a project where River Oaks Boulevard dead ends to the north. That project, the developer is getting ready to hopefully in 2022 start breaking ground to build some houses. And as part of that project, the community development director for Yuba County Community Development has been working with the project applicant on creating, potential through Ross Ranch subdivision that could go through the subdivision and then kind of dead end into a second parcel that recently was sold. And I've been in contact with the property owner that recently bought this property, which is on Country Club Court, just west of the golf course. And we're talking with them about when they do go to develop, that we would like them to develop their parcel in a manner that we could tie the road Country Club and build a road through this parcel on Country Club and connect into the Ross Ranch Road. So there wouldn't be any major, like a direct, like off of River Oaks Boulevard, but there would be internal streets that in the future could be located, that could provide direct access to the golf course from, what I guess I'm referring to as Plumas Lake proper. So that's something that actively trying to solve right now in community development. And I, think that we're in a pretty good space to do it. I can't promise like when it's going to happen, but we're working on it.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. I know that makes Robert from the golf course really excited, and it makes me really excited too. So I know, once River Oaks connects, it'll be really close to have access even directly from River Oaks. But I think based on, the layout of the golf course itself, I'm not sure that access it'll be possible, but it'll certainly be visible from River Oaks, I think, or that area. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I see a question on here about park in Southeast Plumas Lake, northwest of the gas station, county owned. So no, that's probably owned by OPUD, who's responsible for parks in the community. So I think the builder either still owns that parcel or they've given it to OPUD. So it's not currently county owned and will not be county owned. It's not vacant land, but for anyone who's curious, the county does own the parcel that the park and ride is on the east side. So that is a county owned parcel as well. And there's a question here. What is the status of the overpass to the casino? Has the engineering been completed and is it ready to start construction? So unfortunately, the engineering has not been completed. We had a little bit of a hiccup with that process and the firm that was doing that work. And so we need to have someone else kind of wrap up that work. And then we have not completely secured funding for that either at this point. So that's something else that we're working on. And then will there be any more exit entry onto Highway 70 from the east side? No, unfortunately not. And I've gotten this question before. And part of it has to do, obviously cost plays a factor, but Caltrans freeway standards also play a factor with that. And they have a requirement that and I know there's freeways that exist that don't meet this requirement, but once they put it in place, older things get grandfathered in. But the current requirement is, as I understand from Public Works, is you can't have an off-ramp or an on-ramp within 2 miles of another off-ramp or on-ramp. So if you're not aware, Feather River Boulevard and Plumas Lake Boulevard are 3 miles apart. So you can't really put in between there another one. So it wouldn't meet that requirement. So anyway, and then I see there's 2 hands up. So first we'll go with Joshua Potter.
Yes, thank you. Again, thank you everybody for doing this. I mean, obviously this is not your standard public meeting, although it's a wholeheartedly public meeting. The commercial properties that you mentioned, there was no mention on if there's any statuses, applicants, or interest to the parcel at the Wheeler Ranch location. So I was curious about that. And then the second question is, do we have any statuses on the projected new schools, the high school, and any other schools that might go into there?
Yeah, so as far as the Wheeler Ranch parcels, I have not seen anything online about those being actively marketed. Kevin, I don't know if you're aware of any efforts to market those.
No, I've talked to the owner of the property on the southeast corner, and I think you guys will be happy, but I was dissuading him from wanting to try to rezone the property from commercial so that he could put in a mobile home park. And I basically told him, that the county would really like to see there. We understand that utilities aren't there yet, and he understood, and that was the last time I really talked to him. The parcel on the northwest corner, I haven't had any conversations at all with the owner of that parcel. So, again, I think as northern Plumas Lake and the area north of northern Plumas Lake, which we refer to as the North Arboga study area, or North Arboga, as those areas continue to develop, I would assume that we're going to start to get more commercial pressure on those pieces. And just so everyone in this call knows that the piece Wheeler Ranch North was recently purchased in 2021, and the developer of that project is the same developer that developed the houses on the southern end of Plumas Lake. It's called River Oak South, which is where the charging station, gas station is going to be that we talked about. It's the same developer, and they've developed a couple places in the county, and they're pretty gung-ho on building homes and putting in infrastructure in 2022. And we've had a number of other developers in the North Arboga area that are submitting building permits and getting old maps developed so that there'll be more residential in that area. So I'm assuming if residential development continues the way that it is or has been going the last couple of years, in 2022 and 2023, we should start to see more commercial growth up in the northern area as well.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. So to answer the questions about the schools, I'll speak specifically to the schools in the Plumas Lake school district, elementary school district, and the Wheatland Union High School District. I'm not as familiar as with respect to Marysville Joint and plans that they might have for future school development in kind of the North Plumas Lake area. For those unaware, Algodon Road is essentially the school district boundary. So if you live south of Algodon Road, you're in the Plumas Lake Elementary School District for K-8 and the Wheatland Union High School District for 9 through 12. And if you live north of that line, so Wheeler Ranch, North Plumas Lake, around the golf course, you're in the Marysville Joint Unified School District. So as I'm sure those in North Plumas Lake are aware of, Arboga Elementary is undergoing an expansion and conversion from a K-6 school to a K-8 school. So I think that's a really good thing. But looking more at like middle school and high school in kind of the South Plumas Lake area, both are desperately needed, particularly in the elementary school level, or the elementary district, I guess I should say. Elementary district owns 25 acres, kind of south from the fire station, a little south and west of the fire station. I pointed at it early on in the chat. They have actually tried multiple times to go out for a school bond to build a middle school at that location. So far, the taxpayers in Plumas Lake have been unwilling to support that. Hopefully, the next time they go out for that, they'll be successful. It's to the point now where, with all the crazy growth we're having, they're having to start putting portables at schools and deny all inter-district transfers, even if siblings. So folks up in North Plumas Lake, maybe whose kids were already enrolled here, in South Plumas Lake, the district was unable to accept even siblings. So I know that's unfortunate for parents up there. And obviously it's important that we have adequate school facilities for our kids down here as well, especially as growth continues. And there's still a lot of growth to come. For those who are unaware, the entire Plumas Lake area at build out will have roughly 40,000 people. We have about 12,000 right now. So there's still a lot more to come. We're nowhere near being done with building residential in the area. And so hopefully that'll get taken care of next time at the ballot box. And then it takes a few years to, get that built and up and running. But the school district definitely knows that it's needed. Interestingly enough, it's not so much a middle school that's needed at the moment, although that will be. It's really elementary school. And for those who are unaware, the Riverside Meadows, which is currently being used as a middle school by the elementary district, it's actually constructed as an elementary school. So it was built as an elementary school. It's being used as a middle school. So building an actual middle school will essentially free up an elementary school and will provide an actual middle school for the students in our community. So it's kind of a win-win there. Then we'd have 3 elementary schools and 1 middle school. So high school, they saw a drastic increase in enrollment this last year. They went from, I think, high 800 students, low 900 students, something like that, to about 1,100 students. And their projections at this point, which changed drastically over even 2 years ago, are that they're having to add portables as well, essentially. So they're out of space at the high school. They're actively talking with bond council and folks about getting a high school built here in Plumas Lake. Again, that will require the support of the voters and will require some manner of school bond. I think their hope is to get that taken care of and get construction started sooner rather than later with an opening of the high school. I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's 2026 or 2027. And at that point, their projection shows that they would have, I think, about 700 students from the Plumas Lake area to attend that high school, and they'd have 500 students from the remaining portions of the district. So Wheatland, Beale, Camp Far West, Smartsville, that would be attending the campus still in Wheatland. And so anyway, so yes, both needed, both efforts underway by both school districts are trying to take care of that. And just I'll throw it out here while we're on the topic. School districts do collect impact fees from developers. There's so an impact fee is essentially when you build a house, it's so that the builder of that house, and I mean, it gets passed on to the owner, the purchaser, obviously, but the developer pays a certain amount to offset impacts from that house. So, the simplest analogy that I always use is parks, because I think it can be pretty straightforward, and this is a little oversimplification, but OPUD, when they look at Plumas Lake and they said, hey, we're going to have 40,000 people. So for those, an X amount of houses, like 15,000 houses. So we know that at full build out of Plumas Lake, we are going to need X amount of parkland to support those 15,000 houses. And so what's it cost to build an acre of parkland? It costs, Y dollars. Okay. Well, we're going to take the total cost to build all the parks when there's 40,000 people here, and we're going to divide it by the total number of houses that there will be. And then each house will pay their little share. And then as houses get built, money goes into a pot. And then as so many houses get built, a park gets built to kind of serve those houses. And that kind of continues on. So similar thing happens with respect to schools, but the challenge is the state artificially limits and caps what those development impact fees can be. So in the case of OPUD can set those. I mean, obviously, you want them as low as possible, but they can set them at the actual cost to build a park so that when they get X amount of houses, they can build X amount of parkland. Unfortunately, with schools, that isn't the case. So it's artificially set low. And so what you wind up with is a bunch of houses and not enough money to build a school. And so you rely on state school bonds and local school bonds to kind of, I've heard it described as the three-legged stool. So you need those 3 funding sources to build a school. And so the voters play a big role in that, in addition to continued residential growth. So anyway, I hope that that answers that question from school standpoint. And then Madison, we'll move on to you and your question.
Hi, yeah, so I didn't necessarily have a question, just wanted to give more details on the Sierra Central thing. Gary, you and I have talked before. I've lived in Plumas Lake for the last 2 years, and I fight Ron and John on a daily basis on trying to get them to develop the Plumas Lake branch out here. To put it in other terms, because it's something that I didn't understand when I was asking about it, it's not necessarily a grocery store, it's an anchor tenant is what we call it. So for other people in the community to look at it, think about businesses that you go into town for on a daily basis. do you have to leave your home? If you're driving all the way into Marysville and Yuba City to do what you need to do, and there's a bank there, what's the point of us putting one here? So that's something that I really want to reach out to the community. If you know those businesses that you visit on a daily basis that are interested in building out here, let them know, because the second that anchor tenant goes into that spot, we break ground. We're ready. We have a branch number assigned to it. We have people ready to step into it.
Great. Thank you very much, Madison. I appreciate that information and clarification. Okay, so I saw one more question in the chat, and then we'll go on to kind of some final Q&A and one more discussion point. So what is Yuba County doing to ensure that the electric infrastructure is beefed up to handle more electric vehicle charging and more people in the area? So unfortunately, it's, might sound like I'm passing the buck here, but that's not really a county responsibility. That's a PG&E responsibility and a state regulatory responsibility. So sadly, kind of, I guess my answer is nothing in particular. So I don't know if Kevin or Rachel has anything else on that to add, but that would be my
I don't have anything really much to add other than anytime there's new projects, my department, we route a description of the project to a number of different state, federal, state, federal, and local agencies, including utility companies, and we do notify Plumas Lake, not Plumas Lake, excuse me, PG&E on all new housing developments and different things like that are going in, and even really large level projects. We would notify PG&E and we would like them to provide feedback on if they have any concerns or issues with the projects. But most of the time we don't hear anything back, and as Supervisor Bradford pointed out, the county really doesn't have the ability to do much on that in terms of the electric.
Okay, great, thank you. So the last question is, what can residents do to encourage their favorite business to come to Plumas Lake? And I think hopefully what you've learned over the evening is the county kind of sets really kind of overarching high level requirements for where businesses can go and what kind of businesses from a high level standpoint can locate in our community. And then that property is privately owned. And so really, I think the best way for all of us, that includes me, and this includes all the residents in Plumas Lake, the best way for us to get the businesses that we want into Plumas Lake is talk to any contacts that we have at, people that are interested in opening businesses, maybe a restaurant or whatever it might be, and have those conversations with them and try to personally sell them on why Plumas Lake is such an amazing place and why they should open their business here. And then, share with them the brochures that I put in the chat, right? So say, your business should locate in Plumas Lake, and here's why, and here's who you can contact to figure out, what it might cost you from a lease or a land standpoint to do that. And then we can have them reach out to Rachel with the Yes team. If you just go to yestoyuba.com, then her contact information is there, and she can get engaged and help them understand from a county standpoint and a special district standpoint what that process would be, what all those costs would be, and then they can figure out, does it pencil out or does it not pencil out? So that's really it. It's really each of us using our contacts with potential business owners to try to get them to, see why Plumas Lake is such an amazing place for them to have their business. So anything to add to that, Rachel or Kevin, as far as what people can do?
I don't have anything to add other than Rachel is a really incredible resource. And she's, I wasn't really sure when we decided to move forward with the position on what it was going to do, and she's exceeded all expectations and has done a fabulous job. So if any of you guys really have any contacts that have any questions about business or anything else and doing business in Yuba County, please reach out to Rachel. I can't say enough glowing things about her.
Okay. And Rachel, go ahead.
No, I feel like blushing doesn't come through on Zoom. Wow, that was quite the compliment. I really appreciate it. And really more genuinely than anything, I really just want to reiterate kind of what I said earlier in case anybody else has jumped on since then. I know that in the scope of what we're talking about tonight is really large scale commercial development. And as a resident, I absolutely understand, your interest in knowing like where your grocery stores are potentially going to be located. It's, fundamental for a community to have a bank, all of those things, those really macular type businesses or anchor tenants, as Madison eloquently put. But I also, again, really want to put out to the Plumas Lake community and all of Yuba County that no business is too big or too small. Home-based businesses, entrepreneurs, all of them are very important to the economic fabric here. And so whether it's your neighbor, yourself, or just a friend in the neighborhood, if they have any interest in starting a business, we're happy to talk to them also. And my contact information is in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. I see another question in the chat. When is the next opportunity to vote on a ballot for the schools? And that'll be June 2022. So it's actually coming up soon. I don't know for sure if the districts will be putting something on the ballot or not in June. And the next opportunity after that would be November of 2022 as well. So we'll see. I know both are looking at it. I'm not sure about a formal decision from either district about putting it on there or not, but whether it'll be June or November, I would speculate that they'll certainly be on the ballot sometime this year. Okay, and so with that, I just wanted to open it up for any general Q&A or any questions about what the community members can do to encourage businesses to come here. So really just any other questions that you guys might have this evening.
I don't know if anybody's going to be raising their hands, but definitely appreciate again the points made. I know when I had first seen kind of this discussion topic show up on the Nextdoor app, there was a lot of people that were like, "Oh, what do we do? How do we approach it?" And through some individual correspondence with others on the app, there was a lot of recommendation to actually seek out those grocery chains. So you're talking about like your Nugget Markets or your Safeways, Rayleigh's. A lot of them, if you go to their web pages, actually have I want this XYZ company in my area. Fill out this form. I had calls and emails back from Whole Foods and Nugget Market. Unfortunately, Nugget Market kind of said, actually, I got to speak with someone on the phone with them. They were focused on the Roseville side, but said, "Hey, hit me up next year. We'll see what the business is doing." So definitely look at those resources that are out there if we're interested. Appreciate the fact that you're trying to discourage that Wheeler Ranch parcel to be as it was intended. Thank you so much. Hopefully maybe we'll get a business there instead, but thank you again for having these resources. And I think as a community, this is how we build those opportunities the way we want them, by discussing them.
Great. Thanks for pointing that out, Joshua. You're absolutely right. It can't hurt to send those emails and go to those websites and let those businesses know about, that we want them here in Plumas Lake. Particularly, I have to guess that, if they get a substantial amount from a particular community, they'll at least take a look and see if it matches what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think it was, I want to say it was the Whole Foods side that said their rooftop count is what they go off of, and they were needing 10,000 rooftops. Which this was like when I first moved here in 2019. So I don't know where we're at now with the East End, the Southeast End build out, but that was a pretty astronomical number, but that doesn't mean that that's what they're all targeting. That was just Whole Foods.
Right. Yeah. Aren't we about 3-ish maybe, Kevin? You think 3,000 or so rooftops? Well, maybe more than that actually, huh? Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe I think we might be 3,500-ish.
Okay.
Maybe on our way, hopefully we'll be at 4, a solid 4 at the end of 2022.
Because do we have put you on the spot right here. Do we have kind of like if we were to look at the crystal ball and, how many houses are we going to build in Plumas Lake this year? 500, 600, what would be your guess?
So, that's not an official number. My every year, the state requires that my department fill out an annual housing report, which lists the number of new homes, the type of homes, et cetera, et cetera. My staff's in the process right now of getting that information. I'm guessing we probably had about total new production homes in the county around 700. And, I want to say about probably about 400 of those were in Plumas Lake. So, I'm guessing that, we have KB homes that are going to be building in Plumas Lake in 2022, Legacy Homes, Cresley, Lennar, and then, again, there's the North Wheeler Ranch project, the Ross Ranch project. There's a property just to the west of kind of over like where Algodon starts to go into the more ag area. It's called Dana 70. That project will probably go in 2022. So, if the market continues to move the way that it is, I fully expect to see over 500 new homes in Plumas Lake in 2022.
Great, thank you. Okay, any additional questions? Okay, well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Rachel, for coming tonight and helping support me in this. Thanks for everyone for joining. And I want to thank Shirley Claire too for suggesting we do this. So I think it was very helpful. So everyone have a great night.